There is an encouraging story that emerges from the Desert Fathers, the tradition of the monks living in the early deserts of Egypt and Palestine. And the story goes like this. Somebody went to one of the monks and asked him, "What do you do all day long in that monastery?" I think many of us moderns have that question for our contemporary monks. What do you all do in those monasteries all day long? How are you being useful to the world? And the monk answered, "We fall down and we get back up again. We fall down again and we get back up again. And we fall down again and we get back up again." I think this story is a beautiful illustration of what not only our Christian life is, but what I think human life is in general. But I think especially for us Christians, the story shows that our life, far from being perfect, the normal way of living is that we try and then we make mistakes. And then after we make mistakes, we pick ourselves back up again and we try again, knowing that we can make mistakes again and we fall. And then, once again, we pick ourselves up and try again. So many of us get discouraged because life isn't perfect, because we don't have everything perfect the first time around, in the first try. But the story from the earliest monks teaches us that we have to be able to recognize, firstly, that we are going to make mistakes, because only God is perfect. We are, by nature, imperfect. We are created beings, and we are fallen beings at that. So we are going to fall, and we might even fall continuously. But as long as we keep trying, as long as we keep picking ourselves back up again, then we can say we are living life as best we can. This is what beginning again means for any human, but especially for a Christian. Christian spiritual life is dependent upon us persevering, beginning again. We can never say our life is over. We can never say that we have been perfect, that we have perfected every aspect of life. But every day that God gives us is a gift, and it's a call to begin again, to try more perfectly. And so the most important thing to remember is that the Christian life is not spontaneous. It cannot be spontaneous. We need a method to the Christian life. We need a rule of life in order to succeed. And in this, we have generations upon generations of men and women and children throughout the ages, in every walk of life, in every vocation, to inspire us in two ways. Firstly, to know that they themselves were weak, they themselves were fallible, they themselves made mistakes, because they also were created, they also were imperfect. But secondly, by the grace of God, to inspire us with the knowledge that they did grow in the spiritual life. They did grow in perfection, following Christ's words, "Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." And so their method of life, their rule of life, can inspire us even today. And it can inspire us to take action, because so often do we not get discouraged that we've failed, and it paralyzes us from even wanting to take action. Sometimes we think, well, maybe it isn't worth it. I'll just fail. There's no way I can succeed. Well, I'm certain that the saints themselves had that temptation, but they conquered that temptation in two ways. Firstly, by the grace of God. By the grace of God, they did everything that they could. And secondly, by cooperating with God's grace, by their free will, joining with God's grace, and together in that relationship, They were able to wake up every day and begin anew and renew their commitment. And so, the number one rule to start with on your road to perfection is that you have to be honest with where you are at. And the first rule of honesty is to say, I am not perfect. For a Christian, God has created me. God is perfect. God is infallible. I am created. I am weak and imperfect. And oftentimes I fail. However, I believe and I trust that with God's grace, I will grow in the spiritual life. I will grow in perfection as long as I'm willing to do one thing, as long as every morning I can awake and turn to God and say, now I begin. Now is the time for me to begin. Join us tomorrow as we look at the importance of now, of living in the moment for the Christian life.